Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today, May 7th, just under 4 weeks away from the Conservation in Action Tour, America's premier on-farm experience. I'm David Frabata with Conservation Technology Information Center. CTIC is the producer of this webinar and the Conservation in Action Tour coming up June 3rd and 4th in and around Raleigh, North Carolina, where sweet potato is one word and strawberry season is underway. We have a preview of the tour today, including a detailed look at North Carolina's interdisciplinary research network led by the North Carolina Department of Agriculture, together with NC State and North Carolina A&T. Today's webinar features this research network that drives the next generation of best practices and technologies for North Carolina's farmers. We'll be stopping by Upper Coastal Plain Research Station during our tour, during our lunch stop in a few weeks, and we'll be looking a little bit more at some of the other area stations in the next hour. There's still time to register for the Conservation in Action Tour, but you'll need to do it this week to get our lowest rates. Our regular registration expires tomorrow, and rates will go up starting Saturday. The tour is our flagship event, and it is sponsored. We thank our sponsors for supporting it. This webinar also supported by our sponsors, and we appreciate their support so we can provide a learning laboratory here as a preview and out in the field for farmers, for agriculture professionals, for sustainability professionals, for policymakers, and all in the allied value chain. A little bit about Conservation Technology Information Center. We're a farmer-led organization coming up now on 45 years. We are one of the oldest and longest running public-private partnerships solely dedicated to the advancement of conservation agriculture at the farm level. Our member organizations support us. We appreciate all of their continued support, both for this project and our other projects around the country. Some of our other partners that are project-based, stemming from both public and private entities, national, local, and international, we appreciate their support and their willingness to engage with CTIC. We are a community that is able to consolidate all of our investments and make each dollar earn more. So on to our discussion today. We're looking at the future of regenerative ag and other agriculture systems from the research level. We're going to hear from Cherry Research Station. They are the center, they house the Center for Environmental Farming Systems. This is a way for North Carolina farmers to understand how different production systems are profitable, are efficient, and sustainable within their operations. Central Crops Research has been prolific in the development of new varieties and cultivars for North Carolina's key crops, including tobacco and cotton, and Upper Coastal Plain, which we'll be visiting during our lunch stop on June 4th, where our farm tours happen. And most of its commodities that it researches generate more than half of cash receipts for North Carolina farmers. So it's important place for new information, practices, and technologies. Our presenters today are Teresa Lambert. She's the director across the 18-station network. Johnny Howard at Cherry. Keith Stark at Central Crops. And Craig Deal at Upper Coastal Plain. We appreciate them coming online and spending a little time with us and their expertise in what is going on in their research stations. You can always find out more information and find this webinar recorded at ctic.org. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Teresa Lambert, Director of the Research Station Division.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to give you a brief overview of our North Carolina agriculture and our research station platform. We're thrilled that you guys are coming to North Carolina and will be visiting our Upper Coastal Plain site as one of your stops. I think you're going to have a fantastic visit there. As he mentioned, my name is Teresa Lambert. I am the director of the research stations for the North Carolina Department of Agriculture, which I'll give you an overview of what the research stations mean to me. I have worked for agriculture and state government for more than 30 years. I'm somewhat of a legacy with the research stations because I was born and raised on a research station. You might say that I never really learned how to do anything else, and I'm okay with that. The research station platform is a bit different in North Carolina than it is in other states. In most other states, the research station platform falls under the land-grant university. But in North Carolina, and I believe Texas and maybe West Virginia are similar, but in North Carolina, the research station division falls under the Department of Agriculture. Now, we do co-manage those stations with NC State University with my counterpart, Dr. Lauren Fisher. And so, by being very unique in this partnership, this gives us many advantages that other states don't have. We have flexibility to navigate between purchasing policies and HR policies. So, for example, if our purchasing restrictions are too prohibitive at one station that's under the Department of Agriculture umbrella, we can make those necessary provisions on another station that's under the university umbrella. So, gives us a lot of flexibility, gives us a lot of leverage to make progress where possible. A very smart man who was once my boss and who has since gone on to the community college system, he once told me that we should never let bureaucracy stand in the way of progress. And I think North Carolina sets that gold standard of culture for our research stations division. So if you don't mind advancing the slide. So this is just an illustration of what the research station diversification looks like in North Carolina. You see that you see the 18 stations listed here. And if you don't really know about North Carolina geography, let me explain very briefly, and I will promise to keep this brief. But if you look at the area west of I-77, that would be considered our mountain and our foothill region. If you look at the area between I-77 and I-95, that's considered our Piedmont region. And then everything east of I-95 is basically our coastal plain region. And right there in the center with the little star that denotes our land-grant university, NC State. So if you look at this map, number 14, which is my home base, is a very mountainous region. And if you look at a map with the isobars of climate and temperature, number 14 is very, very similar to Pennsylvania and the New England states. If you drop down and look at station number 11, that's our Sandhills Research Station. The climate, the topography, the soil types there are much more similar to northern Florida and southern Georgia. So if you are a researcher that's doing small grain, for example, you can evaluate small grain varieties that do well in cool, wet environments, 3 hours away from a location that can evaluate those varieties for droughty, hot conditions. So as a researcher, having those tremendous diversifications in climate, temperature, topography, soils, it's amazing that you can do that kind of research within 3 hours of the land-grant university, and we're very, very proud of that fact. You'll also notice on this map that you really can't differentiate between an NCDA station and an NCSU station. And we are very, very intentional of that fact because we want to keep those lines very fuzzy. We want to make sure that our stations work very cohesively together, that the continuity of research between an NCDA and an NCSU station is very seamless. And that's why we keep the map very ambiguous, because we want to maintain a very high level of commitment to the research station platform to provide unbiased research for our land grant university and research partners. So we're very committed to agricultural research in North Carolina, and I can get very long-winded, so I'm going to leave it at that. I've got lots to talk about when you guys come to North Carolina, and I'm really excited to see everyone in June.
You're all set.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Johnny Howard. I'm the superintendent at Cherry Research Farm in Goldsboro, which is one of the 18 stations that Teresa was talking about. And Cherry is also home to the Center for Environmental Farming Systems, also known as CEFS. I'll start out just by giving a little bit of history briefly about this facility. It was originally owned and operated by Cherry Hospital, which is a mental institution still in existence, that allowed patients to work, and they produced food and for use at the hospital and for other state mental hospitals. And that history goes back over 100 years, I think, probably at this point. But the station was transferred to the Department of Agriculture in 1974 and just operated as a working farm for several years before it was assigned to the Research Stations Division in the early 80s and was transitioned to move into research availability for researchers. We provide a platform, which all the stations do, for research activity in North Carolina, and we're one of the relatively larger stations in the network. We have approximately 2,250 acres total land. We have about 650 acres devoted to crops and 400 acres devoted to pastures. And that's kind of outside of some large scale projects that I'll talk about in a few minutes. We also have livestock operations here, including a pasture-based dairy and a beef cow-calf operation that so we operate 365 days a year, which is, typical for any farmer that's involved with any type of livestock, of course. The scale of our acreage here and our livestock allows us to do everything from small scale plot work up to the long-term projects that I'll talk about later on in my presentation. But that's kind of a key thing, to be able to scale things up sometimes up to large acreages. So our partnership with CEFS, and I'll refer to the Center for Environmental Farming Systems as CEFS most of the time. All that came about in 1994, where when the site was chosen to host the field research, education, and outreach facility for that organization. So CEFS is an organization. They don't own land or anything, but they exist as an organization that has its origins in research, and they've expanded out into some other areas as well in their time of existence. So the collaboration is a joint effort between NCDA, NC State University, and as well North Carolina A&T University, and it was all formed to focus on sustainable agriculture. So CEFS involvement brings researchers together to focus on long-term impacts regarding sustainability, farming practices, and they continue to spread out into more current areas of concern, including climate change, climate resiliency, and things along those lines. The initial establishment by that organization kind of broke the station up into some research units that they kind of focused on, and so those units as they exist are, we call them one of them the Farming Systems Research Unit. We have an agroforestry research unit, an organic research unit, the pasture-based dairy unit, the pasture-based beef unit, a small farm unit, and we have had an alternative swine unit that is not functioning at this time. It's kind of been mothballed for a while. One of the large-scale projects that goes on here is our Farming Systems Research Unit, established in 1999 and has been continuously managed intensively since then. It's approximately 200 acres, and there's the interdisciplinary studies kind of hit on 5 key points. Our conventional cash cropping using best management practices, including no-till cover crops, or with occasional tillage and no cover crops. So comparisons there. An integrated crop livestock system using a pasture and a crop rotation. Organic cash cropping using legumes as nitrogen inputs, or that's incorporated in with the livestock grazing in some years. Silver pasture grazing is a component within that study. And there's an area that was just abandoned and allowed to just grow back. That was to whatever would come up. So that area now is in shrubs, trees, everything that's grown since then. So some of the benefits of having this large scale project is the group is able to get long-term data. And along with that, they can embed shorter term projects as long as they align with the total plan and for the whole unit. And some of the things that go on there are greenhouse gas emission projects and water quality projects that may be of a shorter term, but still following the rotations that align in the whole project. So this slide just represents the whole 200-acre block of that system, and you see little green squares within that. Those are the GPS located sampling points within this system, and it's intensively sampled every 3 to 4 years. They go back and they collect soil samples from these same areas, and they have these samples all the way back from the initial formation of the system. They've got these stored at NC State along the actual samples stored at NC State, along with the analysis information that has come from those as well. So researchers can go back and pull those samples from 20 years ago, or they can pull data from that time. The next unit I wanted to talk about a little bit was our agroforestry research unit. It's a 17-acre site that was initially established in 2007, excuse me, with the planting of trees. So this was on some marginal farmland, and they envisioned having this agroforestry unit. So the trees were planted in 2007. and it was just cropped in between the trees in the alleyways for several years until they were ready to actually plant grass there. So native warm season grass mix was planted in 2014. And in addition to that, an adjacent 11-acre open plot was planted in the same grass mix so that there would be a control. And there's also a narrow cropland strip that divides the treed area and the control area, just so that they would have a place that was cropped each year to be able to go back and pull soil samples from that area. And so the main objective of this study is to evaluate the production of all things that can come off of that, potential timber, the actual forage that can be grown there, livestock, raising capability, and then some of the more scientific areas with the soil carbon, the soil microbial activities, greenhouse gas emissions, nutrient cycling, management details. A lot of people piggyback on the work that is going on in this plot of land. And so we get a lot of little sub projects each year that may be happening on this unit. This is Dr. Alan Franzlubers in this picture with the soil sample rig. He has been one of the key people in the last 10 years that's been managing this unit. And so kind of want to put his picture there. But some of the work that he's interested in is he's a soil scientist, so he's interested in the soil aspects of the ongoing use of the area. The carbon work, that's a big thing now. We get other people that are interested in the animal behavior, stress responses, grazing in shaded and unshaded areas, and all the interactions that happen with the timber forage and the livestock as the system exists. We have an organic research unit. We maintain approximately 32 acres of certified organic land in some various areas across the station. There's not a lot of certified organic land available for researchers. It's a challenge to maintain organic certifications. And we had more land at one point in time, and it was getting to be more than could really be efficiently managed. And so we cut back on some of it some, but we still do maintain. And we get projects just about every year. Somebody wants some certified organic land for some type of project. And part of that farming systems research unit is exclusively treated organically, maintained with an organic certification. And that's part of the rotation that's involved in that system. And then we have a small farm unit that does work that also it's important for them to have some certified organic land each year as well. Our pasture-based dairy is a seasonal calving dairy with approximately 140 milk cows. So they stay on pasture. These cows stay on pasture all the time. We don't have a lounge barn for them. They come up to a milk parlor twice a day and are milked, and they go back on pasture. And so we have a kind of a goal to graze as much as possible with limited feeding, but we can't quite make it year round. And they also get supplemental feeding even during the time that they're grazing to help with the milk production. The different projects and activities that we've had going on at the dairy. has to do with pastures and stocking rates, um, the nutrient inputs and outputs, the strategies for keeping cows cool. So no lounging barn means, they're out in the pastures in the hot summers that we have here in North Carolina, but we actually use some agroforestry uh, techniques and have had projects with using water sprays to help keep these cows cool. But these come, different projects come at different times as far as studying the aspects of the heat on these cows. Differences in milk composition from the various feeding regimes, and we also work to adapt technologies to allow for improved labor efficiency and reducing inputs. So we have several schools, classes that come around the dairy each year, and a lot of those involve students from local colleges, and we're able to help out with the training aspect as far as practical lab work for some of these students. Our pasture-based beef unit, the goal is to kind of mimic a what we would call a typical cow-calf production system here in Eastern North Carolina. They've always worked towards uh, integrating best management practices such as record keeping. We have a controlled breeding season, um, being cognizant of the way that the cows are watered, and stream and wetland exclusions with our buffer stripping. Um, Try to get, just like the dairy, as much of a year-round forage system as possible to kind of minimize the carrying the feed to the cows. But it's a typical cow-calf operation. We don't feed any cows out here. We don't feed any beef out on this station. We sell our calves once they're weaned. Our small farm unit is an interesting area. We have some certified organic work that goes on there as well as conventional plots. We've had a lot of work in recent years there with specialty fruit and vegetables, alternative crops, some of these Asian specialties and things like that. We also have a lot of cover crop studies that go on, especially in the organic side of things, to help with soil fertility and weed suppression, which is always a problem when you try to grow things organically. We do have a couple of high tunnels there that are used by researchers from time to time, and one of the more interesting things that has happened there in the last few years is we've had a guy working with biodegradable mulch as far as these beds go, and seeing how long it takes for some of these products to break down. A lot of involvement from NCA&T University in Greensboro here on the small farm unit, and we appreciate their participation in that. Our alternative swine unit is something that is a past project at this point, not currently operational due to just some infrastructure that was worn out and needs improvement, and basically a shortage of labor. But the system was designed to utilize a deep bed straw system to manage the waste. So no lagoon. And these hogs, you can see in that picture, there's several structures. They were housed in several structures. It was a farrow to finish operation. The the deep bedded straw is where all the waste went. That got cleaned out, was spread on pastures. And we also at the same time we were doing work on with pasture based hog production because there are some small producers in North Carolina who do practice that. So, pretty good system. But we can't be all things to all people all the time. And so, something had to go at some point. And just with the infrastructure problems and things wearing out, that unit's mothballed for a little while. So we have a pretty good working relationship with the CEFS organization here on the station. They have different project leaders that kind of help oversee some of these units and some of the things that are going on as far as the long-term management of things. And a lot of the researchers are associated with the CEFS organization that come to do the uh, the smaller projects. And so I need to exit from this. And I would think I was successful in doing that. Was I not?
I think you were
Uh,
outstanding. Thank you, Johnny. I appreciate it. For everyone's edification, we are going to have a Q&A session at the end of our other presentations. So if you have any, please feel free to load them in the Q&A chat feature. We'll review those and get them to a panel when we wrap up here. So next, I want to kick it over to Keith Stark. He's at Central Crops Research Station. And Keith, you're on.
All right. Well, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, my name is Keith Stark, and I'm located at Central Crops Research Station, which is about 25 minutes southeast of Raleigh and the main campus of NC State University. The farm here is 523 acres, and about half of that is arable, whether it's field crops or the teaching orchard. So we have a pretty diverse presence here as far as crops that we produce. We have row crops as well as some horticulture crops that we'll talk about. So yeah. And so first I want to highlight some of the collaborators that we work with and the partnerships. Certainly NC State University, the College of Ag and Life Science is the driver here. We are an NC State farm here. You've heard that mentioned throughout the presentations that we're a network of 18 stations. And so this is one of 6 NC State University farms around the state. The role here has been primarily very heavily involved with plant breeding and new crop development, primarily in corn and soybeans, but certainly also tobacco, cotton, sweet potato. Mentioned earlier that sweet potato, we're the #1 producer of sweet potato in the country, so the breeding program has their nurseries here as well. We certainly serve as a bridge between lab discovery with the new plant science initiative on campus, and the individual project leaders that have labs on campus. The field space here gives them an opportunity to kind of get out of the lab and see what those projects will do in a field setting that would be more applicable ultimately to commercial production and grower adoption. So some of the key roles, certainly the field validation of the breeding lines, there is certainly the molecular aspect has really increased over the last several decades. We have a heavy presence of the USDA corn breeding and soybean breeding, very heavy with USDA. And then the cotton is NCSU, NC State University breeder. Tobacco is NC State, small grains, NC State, and sweet potato as well. But lots of collaboration. Um, there are, with all these projects, there are multi-state grants, and certainly some of these studies are being conducted in other states and certainly within the state at other farm locations here within our system as well. So they're not exclusive to central crops, and that is one advantage that we have with the system here in North Carolina is that the project leaders really get to see what their material will do in different climates. Teresa mentioned that the geography really gives a wide look, extremes, and then anything in between that. So it's really helpful and it helps advance some of the best material. We are a heavily used research station with the proximity to Raleigh being 25 minutes from campus. It is very convenient and really paramount for the corn and soybean breeders to be able to get to their fields daily. We have a lot of projects. You can see here, over 140 different research initiatives or objectives. We expect that to continue. Certainly as we bring new researchers online, and just really with the plant science initiative, we've brought in, computer science collaborators with the digital aspect, the electronic advancements with drone flights and imaging. So it really has kind of opened wide up or opened up tremendously with new collaborations and what can be done here. Let's see here. The impact for North Carolina producers, it certainly doesn't stop with our growers. Measurable impact with just the history of improvements on crop productivity. Certainly pest management, whether it's weeds. We have some soil pathology work done here where we have inoculated fields that are dedicated specifically to sweet potato and cucurbits, and very important research in those components, particularly with sweet potato and strawberry on the fruit and vegetable side. But when you think about major contributions, over 100 plus corn inbred lines have been developed here at Central Crops. Multiple soybean varieties have been released that were developed here, including Pickett, which you see there, which was the first cyst nematode resistant soybean in North Carolina. Tobacco varieties, certainly a strong presence of tobacco in North Carolina. A lot of the release lines that now really dominate much of the Southeast, and it has consolidated somewhat, but North Carolina remains strong in that category as far as production and development of new lines. And sweet potato, Covington has been around really probably, I think the patent is expiring this year. So that's probably about a 20 to 25 year run, 21 years roughly, that Covington was developed and released. And really from a table stock perspective of what you see in grocery stores, predominantly you're going to be buying Covington if you're buying sweet potatoes to bake or prepare fresh. You can advance So I mentioned soil-borne pathogens. We have a presence of nematode research here as well. The project leader for that work has responsibility in corn, cotton, soybean, tobacco, and sweet potato. So it's a diverse project and certainly important as there are many different nematode species, and the work there is really instrumental in helping growers mitigate. It's very expensive to treat with soil fumigants, so we're looking at resistance, breeding resistance from lines that have shown resistance, and getting then those traits moved into something that would be really desirable from the consumer standpoint. So it's an elaborate undertaking. Just an example with sweet potato, you're probably looking somewhere between 7 and 15 years to do that type of breeding. And so when you bring in the molecular level genetics, that hopefully will advance some of that. This station has been used to develop a lot of genetic markers that can be inserted to trace those, one, to identify gene function, two, to trace it through to see if it's moving with the crosses that are being made. So really some technical work that's done here physically in the nurseries, and then certainly in the lab with the genetic equipment that they have. Here, we are kind of in a unique position being really at the edge of the coastal plain and the Piedmont area. We do have some topography here. We're not hilly like the mountains, but we're certainly not flat like the coast. And so we do have water movement. We have really placed a high emphasis on cover cropping, particularly after we've gotten our summer crops. We try to cover the soil in our fields, at least 100 to 150 acres of what, maybe 250 acres. It isn't always possible to cover that when you have late harvested crops, but we do try to get out with this grain drill and put out a cover crop annually. We are working with some alternative crops. We've had switchgrass, we've had miscanthus and some other ones. Not an active project right now, but we do maintain those projects in case something comes up. Hemp has been one, whether it's fiber hemp or hemp that would be harvested for the CBD oils. And then certainly some other specialty crops come in periodically, some variety trialing with cucurbits, particularly specialty melons and that kind of thing. But certainly we want to put an emphasis on nutrient and water management strategies. We are a little different because we don't have the flat land, we don't have linear systems for irrigation, and we don't have any center pivot. We are all solid set, which is a labor-intensive venture, but we operate off of 20 acres of ponds. So we're actually pulling water out of those ponds and pushing it through the irrigation system into these research fields. And we'll talk about some of the projects we've done here in just a minute to help keep those water bodies with high quality water. This is one we have partnered with the Johnston County Soil and Water Conservation office here in the county, and we go through with them. They will help us design kind of either a reconstruction of an older waterway, or it might be a new establishment where we see that water has begun to run, and we want to kind of control that from a flow or a rate flow, how fast it flows with the topography, and then also kind of keeping the soil in place. So this is just one illustration of a project we did in probably one of the heaviest bodies of water that we get. It's been kind of dry lately, but this area does get a significant volume of water through it. So we established this waterway a couple years ago, and it was a nice project that's holding up well. And if you are not familiar with how soil and water conservation works, with us, it's typically a 10-year contract. So when we put this water structure in, we maintain it for 10 years, and Soil and Water helps us with kind of grading how it's holding up, and if there's any amendments that need to be made to it, they will assist us with that. But we do get some cost share funds to install this. This is another one we did more recently. We just finished this project about 6 weeks ago, and this was a area. It has a lot of runoff from the equipment shelter roof. And so what we did with Soil and Water's help, they brought their engineer out and engineered a gutter system that was placed at the drip line to eliminate that water coming straight to the ground. This is an area, it's one of the higher areas, and we had a lot of that water. If you can see on the right there, going down the driveway, the water would come off the roof and ultimately come down at a high rate into that pond. So we were getting more sediment than we like to see. And so this gutter system is diverting the water into kind of a lower area, almost kind of a blue line wetland area that will help filter that water and keep some of the sediment from the pond that we irrigate out of. So you can kind of see two phases of where that project is, and it is finished now. And so really just to kind of rehash the value and the impact of these research stations, just the geography and what you get to experience environmentally at these different stations. Teresa mentioned it, soil types, just the temperatures, just elevation, whether it's mountains in between, all the way to the coast, a lot of different soil types. Uniquely, this station has about 16 different soil types on it, which is extremely unique. We just hosted the National Soil Judging Contest here, had about 300 students that participated from probably about 30 different universities. And, the one thing I think we took away from that is the students didn't expect to come to somewhat of a Piedmont known station to look at coastal plain soils. So perhaps a little trickery in there for them, but they did very well. And I think they enjoyed the visit to see what kind of soils are here in North Carolina. Um, we can go to the final slide. And this picture here, you can see the green dots. Basically, those fields are classified as highly erodible. And what that means, it doesn't mean that we can't farm it, but we are also, these fields are in that 10-year project or contract that one out of every 4 years has to be no-till. So we're implementing cover crops and no-till on those fields to preserve the soil in place and just overall soil health to minimize the erosion. But it's a really neat program, and we really are giving a great effort to get into soil management and soil health and overall conservation. So with that, I'll wrap up.
Fantastic, Keith. Thank you so much. And my apologies to Craig, who's coming up next, because we are running behind. So you are going to have quite a challenge of getting through quite a bit of material in just a few minutes here, Craig. But we are going to spend some extra time with you when we're on site on tour in just a couple weeks. So feel free to come on camera and tell us a little bit about Upper Coastal Plain.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm the superintendent here at Upper Coastal Plain, and we are located here in Rocky Mount, and we're glad all of you are on. And I just go through this slides and all pretty quick. On this farm, our number one research crop is cotton. We do more of that. We got several trials. It all goes back to we got nematode trials. We have uh, plant and date trials. We have drought studies. Of course, we are in the middle of a drought, so that works out pretty good. And, variety trials. There's several trials we have. We have about 25 different cotton research trials. And the next thing we go to is tobacco. This area is very dependent on tobacco, and we do a lot of research. We have black shank nurseries, injected black shank nurseries. We have a granule wilt study or bacterial wilt study, but we also do variety trials, and we also have insecticide trials, fungicide trials, and we harvest it and hopefully get good research for NC State and ultimately the farmer at the end of the thing. But we really do. We have soybean trials. We do a lot of variety testing, corn and soybeans. We have corn breeding trials. We have soybean breeding trials. We just do a lot of different stuff. Of course, as everybody does, but we just got a lot going on. We have 2 locations. We have the home location here. We have 260 acres here of tendable land, and then we have a farm 11 miles away that's got 200 of tendable land. We got 500 acres total, and we do have some, woodlands that we do raise pine trees in to hopefully, we tend that as a crop also. The biggest thing here, like I say, cotton is our number one research, and we also do breeding work in cotton. We are full. We have no extra land. And we do a lot of irrigating here. And this year's the first year, being it's so dry, that we actually had to irrigate to get cotton out of the ground. We had to irrigate to make the tobacco survive because it was real dry. Fortunately, it is raining a little bit outside, so that's good. But we have a linear that last year was the first year we have used it. It was great. It was a pleasure. And then we have 5 hard hose reels, and that requires a lot of labor, and it requires a lot of operating money to keep everything going. Irrigation is expensive. No matter how good it looks, it's just a cost draining thing. But when you're in where we are right now, we have to irrigate, and hopefully we'll get good rains, and we'll be laying off irrigation, because if we continue to have to irrigate this year, we are going to be out of water, and that's a legitimate concern, and hopefully that will not happen. But like I say, and going back to the crops, we also have some switchgrass and peanuts. I probably left the peanuts out. And we do a lot of peanut research. David Jordan here, we have 8 trials that are tied to cover crops it's peanut backed, but it's also growing the cover crops and different crops, like cereal rye, ryegrass, anything that's, it is a cover crop that we plant into, and we might plant it in corn and beans one year, but the next year we'll be coming back in peanuts to see if that kind of work eliminates weeds, on the peanuts, just see what we can do to get in front of these weeds. And we do weed control trials also. I call them weed trials. We come out here and they do tests with different herbicides, and basically on them fields we grow weeds, and that's just what we do, because we have to get the research from the new chemicals and all that will hopefully benefit the farmer in the future, and that's just something we have to do, and but like I say, we have a good crowd here. When we're fully employed, we have 9 full-time people. And we strive on doing quality research. And I hope when y'all come out in June, on the 1st of June, we'll have this set up, and I'll be glad to talk to you anytime. I know we need to cut this short, but anyway, that's us in a gist, and we'll see you the first part of June.
Hey, thank you, Craig. I'm going to invite everyone else to come on camera. We got one question from the audience I want to make sure we get to, and that is, how do you guys share equipment? How do you get the right stuff to the right site? Obviously, you're growing a lot of the similar crops, assuming there has to be some mechanization that needs shared. How's that work?
So I can answer that. Prior to fiscal year 22-23, it was quite a challenge to make sure that every station had the equipment that it needed. We did a lot of collaborative efforts to get equipment moved from station to station. We had trucks on the road pretty routinely moving things about, but the General Assembly was very benevolent to us in that fiscal year, and we were able to purchase a lot of new equipment for stations, and allow stations to have each have a piece of its own, so we could eliminate some of the road traffic getting between stations. Each station got a mini excavator. We were able to purchase trailers for those excavators. We purchased a lot of new tractors, a lot of new equipment. We took advantage of a little thing called state term contract. Most folks would be familiar with that. And one of the participants in the state term contract allowed us to bundle packages. For example, if we bought 3 tractors, we essentially got 1 tractor for free. And I'm being a little bit, I'm exaggerating just a little bit, but it's not much of an exaggeration, because we did take advantage of those multi-unit discounts. In addition to being able to take advantage of those multi-unit discounts, for each tractor that we purchased that was over a certain dollar figure, they added an allied piece, which would be a planter, a sprayer, a manure spreader, whatever, anything that would actually attach to the tractor could be purchased as an allied piece. So we were able to buy a lot of equipment that we were never able to purchase before because it had to go out on formal bid. But because it was tied to a state term contract, it made it very, very easy. I will speak to one of the programs that Keith gets to take advantage of, and the John Deere Corporation provided us some free leases that have been very beneficial. So Keith gets a handful of new tractors every 200 hours, and he can utilize that equipment for student education, for demonstrations, but he also gets to put 200 hours of time on those machines as well before they get traded out. So you guys are welcome to jump in and add to that.
Yeah, that's a great,
Yeah,
thank
that
you.
it has been a really great program over the last probably 3 years, and we do utilize that for training students. We have a lot of lab tours, where students on campus have a lab component to an actual lecture, and so they do get real world exposure to the equipment, the technology with precision ag, and just some of the advancements that have been made over the last several decades. We are certainly the benefactors of using some very nice equipment.
That's fantastic. We do still have a couple people on, so if you have any questions there still in the audience, please get them in now. And I'd love to know, what are you guys finding out? Who harnesses the findings of this research? And, specifically when you're looking at alternate systems, production systems, integrated livestock, agroforestry, and things like this, how do you assess efficiency, profitability, as we really look hard more every day at how profitability on every acre matters so much to farmers, especially in places like North Carolina, where farms tend to be smaller and more diverse? I know there were a lot of questions in there.
So I'm going to take over the floor here. So you guys jump in and make me be quiet if you need to. So there was a statistic that was published a few years ago, and obviously that has changed now. But it basically said for every dollar that was invested into research, we had $19 of return on that investment. So research in North Carolina is extremely important to the overall economic impact. I think the number last year was $111 billion in agricultural economic impact. So ag in North Carolina is still the number one industry. So if you think about how we disseminate information, we're basically that three-legged stool. We do the research through the land-grant university, but that information is disseminated through our cooperative extensions. So we've got economists, we've got area specialists, we've got lots of folks in the field that take the information that's gathered at our research stations from the land-grant university, and then that's taken out to the farm level through our cooperative extension service.
Where can we find that?
It would be www.ces.ncsu.edu.
Perfect. I want to thank you all for taking time out of your day. I know we ran over. I appreciate your generosity and your insights. We're really looking forward to being your guests out at Upper Coastal Plain, and sad we can't get to the other places as well. I do want to just let our remaining audience know that we do just have 4 weeks until the Conservation in Action Tour there in North Carolina. We've got a really great program planned. It's definitely going to be worth getting out of the office and getting on farm with us. Regular registration ends tomorrow, so get your lowest rate right now, and rates are going up. The farm tour is June 4th, but we kick off on the 3rd with a great celebration of conservation agriculture. We start around 1, looking at behind the scenes industry stops, and then our opening banquet you will not want to miss. It features our food, our menu with a story, where we're sourcing local farms and local food that's raised sustainably. Last year, we had the pleasure of having ribeyes from Troy and Stacy Hadrick, and making many of our baked goods with flour from Brandt Family Farms. And who wouldn't want a celebrity chef designed menu that's going to complement all of the local foods? Come see Vivian Howard. She grew up on a farm. I know many of you have been following her and her various shows. She is going to be a lot of fun to connect the dots between agriculture and the food we eat. Farm tour starting on the 4th. We're going to visit the Leggett's. Heard a lot about sweet potatoes and their importance. We're going to visit with them. And this is a family operation, and it's General Brent, Sue, Carter, and Colin. They're all working on the farm, and we will be able to see many different crops grown. Their key cash crops are cotton and tobacco, as well as sweet potato. They're an integrated grower. They've got a packer shipper that we're going to go visit, so won't have a shortage of things to do there. In the afternoon, we're going to go out to Z3 Agriculture and visit Zeb Winslow. He has an impressive operation that I think we're really going to enjoy seeing and hearing from Zeb. Zeb's going to be part of the tour. He's going to be on the bus with us. So there'll be plenty of time to pick his brain and understand what motivates him, how he learns, and how he spreads his information to other farmers. This is one of those guys who's all in, and I think everyone's going to enjoy seeing Zeb. We've also pulled in other area farmers to make sure that attendees are getting as many perspectives as possible on farm. And they're all running their own stations. That's going to be Russell Hedrick. He's a Leopold winner, a dryland corn yield record holder, and a serial entrepreneur. He's going to fly some drones and talk about his new venture, Revolution Drones, and how data helps drive profitability in sustainable agriculture. Lassiter Family Farms, we're going to have Donnie there, talk a little bit about his work with Soil Health Institute, and Tidewater Grain out on the coastal plain, looking at how a first-generation farmer came up with a system that made him one of the predominant heirloom rice growers in the Carolinas. Again, thank you all for joining us. Appreciate those who stayed here to the bitter end and over time. And one last thank you to all of our sponsors who makes our work possible. Appreciate you being here and looking forward to seeing you possibly in North Carolina in just a few weeks. Have a great night, everyone.